We are literally 1 week away from the big World Championship 2026 for Yu-Gi-Oh! For Duel Links, Speed Duel, Rush Duel, Master Duel, OGTCG, all to come together, crown some world champions, and hopefully get some big news and reveals. More on that potentially in a future video. Let me know down below what you think is going to happen next week at Worlds, what you think the big update is going to be. Will it focus on Rush Duel? Will it focus on Speed Duel? Will it be a bit of both? Are we going to get a brand new world? Is there going to be a new anime thing announced? Let me know your hope and your dreams down below. Anyway, let's dive into it. We're going to talk about Duel Links, about the new world major update announcement. Of course, we expect one every year. Last year, of course, was the Revamp via 2 whole screenshots. That was a really good reveal, Konami, really good. Of course, the year prior was the Gorosh world reveal, giving us a teaser as to the characters and some of the box cards, but also, the same day, we got the announcement of the main box, right, giving Lyrilos, Wind Witches, Dark Magician, Dogmatica support, that box, as well as a Rush Duel structure deck. Now, this year, for Duel Links, we know the event schedule is giving us a brand new character, but no, it's actually an all-star now, they changed it, and of course, it's going to be Blue Gal, which is Trickstars. So we're expecting a Trickstar mini box to come, around the time of Worlds, so dropping it the same day of, after the event, announcing it there officially, would be pretty big. Now, they could also then again go and do a structure deck or do a deck build box, a couple of days later. That's important because at the moment Rush Duel is in a really bad spot. Worms are tier 0 or like really high tier 1, the best deck in the format, and people have not really been enjoying the format, enjoying playing the game. You look at tournaments, right, there's been none happening pretty much with a good turnout because of Worms being so dominant, and of course at Worlds, we're probably going to see Worms in a big way. There's also the weird deck restrictions with that, so it may not matter exactly for that event. Now, if we go to the Duel Links update chart of doom, i.e. the character unlock chart, we can probably safely expect Osaka to come right after the KC Cup, because there's no way they're going to extend her into October and have that be a 90-day plus character when the last year has all been about reducing them down, and at the moment, it would basically match Alistair's unlock time for rerun. So they will move Duel's Advance around, put this after Osaka, put this into October, and this will align quite nicely. So it all depends on what they do. Would they go from a pretty long gap of not having any Rush content to Osaka's rerun, all the way through to bringing Rituals to Rush Duel? Now, I'm a bit dark, let's bring this back up. Rituals in Rush Duel. I think there's a very good chance they do. And this would be my preferred option if done correctly. And we'll kind of talk about that at the end, how they can kind of tie some things together. This is like the last major update we're going to be getting, mechanically. Right, for either format, as far as we know, Rituals are the last main thing. Now, the one caveat, I guess, is they released Maximum with not really much fanfare. There was a campaign, sure, but it was released in the February with Nail, with the character. Looking forward at Duel Links' schedule, looking to last year, the year before, we know we should be getting a GRF in December. So a Rush character would release in late November, after the Speed KC Cup. Could they do a campaign around then to bring Rituals in then? I think they could. I think they could. And I don't know if you would also tease it here, right? Like, if you're trying to throw Rush players a bone, if this wasn't the big update, right? Not that I'd know how you do that either, because you've got Sevens and Gorosh World, neither of them, like Gorosh, of course, Rituals in the anime, but it was in Season 4, or Season 3, and none of those cards exist IRL, and we're nowhere near there for the story. They can tie in however they want. It all depends on how these things are packaged together, right? They could literally give us 2 characters for, Sevens World or something, and then give us Rituals, and call that the major update, right? And throw some Dream Tickets, throw some accessories, right? Put a selection box for one of the formats or both of them, and then that could be it, right? It is all just down to marketing. We're just talking about marketing, how to excite the players the most. And I think that this would do it for a percentage of the player base, but of course, game is majority speed focused, and that's where the majority of the revenue comes from. So what is the most likely thing they could do again is DM World 2. No, we're not. I've seen some people go, okay, they could do nothing, right? They could give us DM World Revamp, more news, like say, oh, Darts is coming for real this time, teaser Creed or something. I think that would probably be a lot of players considering, oh, that's not a good sign, right? If they're not giving anything they can wiggle their way to explaining as a major update, I think a lot of people would take that as to, oh, game not doing too well, maybe end of service on the horizon. but I don't think we're going to be getting there anytime soon. You know, we can joke about into service and think about it, but the game's got a good few years left in it. Despite being 10 years old, that's a big accomplishment. The game has a bunch of life left in it. It just depends on if Konami wants to kind of take advantage of that and not give us 10,000 All-Stars until the end of time. Speaking of that, GX World, of course, being the big thing. There's two kind of directions you could go down. You can go down Season 1 or go down Season 4. Now, Season 4, of course, never released outside Japan. We have seen it, though, officially in Legacy Duel Link Evolution. They've brought that content into that game. And so it's not some forbidden thing now. It's on Crunchyroll, it's available legally to stream. So I think they could go and do either of them. I think if we're looking at DM World as a example, I think Season 1 makes sense, but you would also then just like gradually go, okay, GX World Revamp, and then we're eventually going to touch on some things from Season 3, some from Season 4, but for the kind of the first year or so, it's going to focus around Season 1. And of course, that being the Shadow Riders, because they've not really touched them at all. I don't even think they've had a Shadow Rider event. This would be a perfect opportunity to bring them in. And there's a bunch of them with cards they could bring. Some don't have any, so it'd be kind of similar to the Orichalcos guys having nothing and they just make things up on the spot. But you look at Camina, for example, with vampires, right? You've got Fraulein, you've got Vorvode, you've got the Xyzes, right? And Zombie Vampire also is a rank 8 Xyz, which could work really nicely with the Horus cards, which we know need to come some point outside of Selection Box Prison. It's Ancient Egyptian. We're going to throw this stuff on Abydos because he hasn't got a deck, and this would at least make some form of sense, right? I would not be too surprised, but also I think if they were going to do any Shadow Riders, I don't think he would be in the crossfire. Similarly with Don's Luke, right? Dark Scorpions, there's like maybe one Tag Force card and one spell we haven't got, so I don't think they'd bring him in either. I think you would probably see, I mean, even someone like Titan, you know, with Archfiends, right? Manta Archfiend is a card got on Daunks already, as the Tag Force version, but not the actual card game version, which China got recently as well. But they've also just got, you know, the Archfiend Heres, they got the Pendulum support, so you could also make an argument to bring Archfiends in with Titan. It would all make sense. Similarly, with Amazonis, right? The issue with this one, right, is that these cards, whilst they could be put on, what's her name? Tanya. That's the one. Bastion's love interest or whatever. Whilst I could put these on her, these are mainly designed to be played by the Titus, by Gloria and Grace, Mark V. So some of these are like my stuff, some of these are Arc 5 stuff. But I think from Konami's perspective, right, even though people do generally like Titus better than Tanya, Tanya is more iconic, more marketable, so I think they would do that. Banner, of course, having chaos stuff, right? You can find a way to put some light and darkness bullcrap in there and make things up on the spot with a skill. You know, maybe support Levianeer as a you know, have him be like a chaos guy rather than being Macrocosmos and Dimensional Fissures being his thing. You know, try and make things a bit based rather than having be like a goat boomer character or something. Sacred Beast, of course, being the big one. Kagamaru finally got his Sacred Beast available via support in Chaos Origins in the TCG. In TCG, it's not been doing too great. In Genesis, it's been doing pretty well. So if you look at Genesis as, oh, that could be a good power level for Duel Links, then having the new Sacred Beast support come in would work quite nicely. And of course, not coming on day one, but over time, right, being the darts you kind of build up to would somewhat make sense, right? And then you've got the big elephant in the room, is Atticus, Night Shroud. There's not too many Red Eyes cards left to bring. You are looking at things like the Flare Dragon, the Red Eyes Soul, the Fire Blast, all burn cards, but he's important because he's the bridge between Season 1 and Season 4. Right, he has some importance there. So you can go from Night Shroud to going, you know what, here's Clear World stuff with Yusuke Fujiwara. Right, that's the link you can go down, right? So these, of course, are fairly new from Battle's Legend a couple of years ago, and they could come into the game whenever. Similarly, right, Old Styles, you could think, oh, look, the Advanced Crystal Beasts for Jesse, right? We've seen you build Jesse in the game for years now as an NPC. Why has he not come yet? That is the big question, right? I forgot to mention this. It's been 1,500 days over that since Jim, our last GX character, in 2022. It's been so long that now just makes sense for there to be a big GX World update of some kind, right? And of course, then you've got other themes, right? You've got Supreme King, right? Who could also, not get an Alt-Star, I don't think, but could also bring in the new support from, it was a Phantom Nightmare, is the other one. I can't think of the name of the set. it is evading me right now. If you look at All-Stars, right, you've got, you know, Zane has plenty of Cyber Dragon support that you could bring. You could give the ult via a Duel's Road event for the graduation duel, like you did with Varus for Season 1. It just kind of writes itself. Of course, Jaden has a bunch of hero cards. Do we have any Roid cards that aren't speedrunned left? Yeah. Mobile-based, you've got Dragon Roid, you've got the card we shall not mention. So, like, Cyrus as well, you know, having a Obelisk Blue attire could happen. Arm Dragon has stuff he can bring as well for Chaz, you know, as an All-Star as well. So, it just kind of writes itself to BGX. Now, we did just see, right, 5Ds get basically a bigger, more impactful update with those forward styles than the DM World ones did, right? You look at the last year of DM World content, and aside from the FTK stuff, there wasn't really much that impactful. They could easily say next year, go, you know what, GX World, you deserve some love, here's Dual Domination, which would fit with the theme of, you know, having the multiple territories being the multiple dorms. That also just kind of writes itself, and you can give more All-Stars via that. I feel like the more I record this video, the more I'm becoming more convinced of GX making the most sense, but deep down, I really, really feel like we're going to get Rush Door Rituals in September. But there is a thing they can do, and it's something they do every year. It's the Road Towards campaign. This is the ideal way, I think, to celebrate both Speed and Rush Door. Going into the 10th anniversary, right, you want to have this big positive momentum going from the September update through to January, when you're culminating the 10th anniversary of Duel Links, right, celebrating it officially, even though it launched in October 2016 in like 2 countries. So besides the point, in this campaign, there's a part 1, part 2. Part 1 focuses on Speed or Rush Door. You get a bunch of promo cards, dream tickets, gems, you get a structure deck, free packs, etc. Part 2 does the same, but for Speed Duel, and it's like 10 days later, right? So what they could do is say, you know what, we're going to give you Rituals in Rush Duel, but we're also going to give you some stuff for GX, right? And the way they frame it, the way they market it, is like this, is that instead of having one day where you've got the major update, have that content spread out across 2-3 weeks, right, through October, because we expect a character anyway in October, and a main box of Speed in October anyway, the end, to go towards the KC Cup in November and early November. Why not take advantage of that and build your big end-of-year update around something like this, where you can support both Speed and Rush Duel, you can make meaningful changes to both formats, and give players of both formats something to look forward to, rather than one of them feeling sidelined by the other. Kind of is what happens with these new odd updates, right? Obviously, before Rush Duel, it wasn't really important because we had Speed as the main format, you know, it all supported everything. But you look at previous years and you go, okay, a big update for Rush Duel, and Speed gets a selection box, and sometimes it's like literally nothing. Or you look at last year, right, where Speed, of course, got the big bulk of content, and Rush had a pretty lackluster box, like deck build, released a couple weeks prior, and then didn't get much of anything, I think, until a couple weeks later, right? So it was also a bit of a rough time as well. I think there's a good way you can go about it, and by learning from these Road Towards campaigns, which people do remember these campaigns more than the brand new world ones, more than the anniversary ones. They remember these Road Towards campaigns because they feel like a big celebration, a big long-term celebration of the game overall, of the content in the game. And of course, there's more they could bring, right? You know, we can't even talk about things like Quality of Life updates, other campaigns, right? Will they bring back the UR Dream Pack campaign from the 9th anniversary? That could be a thing. They could do something unprecedented. I think one thing I would like is that they literally go and give every world a new character. 2 of the potential things, the most obvious things, is either Rush Rituals or GX. But it could be something different, right? They could decide, you know what, it's time we're going to give Arc 5 Turbo Duel outfits. Which, like, you know, there's plenty of Arc 5 characters, filler characters they could bring in, but, you know, we're currently in a bit of a alt-style stint where it feels like we're getting more alt-styles than characters when we are, but it feels like that because the frequency of them, that they're actually impacting the way people feel about the speed form overall and the rollout of characters. So it's gonna be a big weird one to see what they actually do. But of course, it is literally a week away. This Tokyo Game Show is 1 week earlier this year. I believe it's on the weekend of like the 17th or something. So they usually like to do a big blowout reveal of the new update at Tokyo Game Show. Last year, it was the eFootball campaign instead. and we just kind of had to infer from the gameplay as to the new things. They didn't really go, oh look, Yugi has an alt-star, oh look, there's new animation for Dragon Master Knight, oh look, there's new animated Blue-Eyes Star Magician. They never really said anything about it. It was just, oh look, it's there, hey look, Neymar, Messi, whatever football terms, I don't know. So you never know. You never know what can happen next week at Worlds. That's the kind of exciting thing. You know, obviously there's a lot of videos out there speculating as to other things can happen, right? You know, going down and doing DM Memory World or something, or OCG structures, which I think would also not be a crazy good idea, given that at the moment archive skills are basically what those characters would be bringing, right? There's no reason to bring them. Or Chronicle World. Chronicle World I think actually is a really awful idea. That doesn't make any sense, right? Especially given that, you know, we are approaching the end of like a lot of the branded stuff. Of course, there's always more striker support, more charmer stuff to come. You know, Snake Eye is just getting started, but at the same time, it's not an anime, right? It's a promotional short. It's not the same as, you know, them releasing Yu-Gi-Oh! 9, right? You know, you're not going to have a Diabell Star summoning herself against Yugi playing Dumb Machine Girl. Like, it doesn't make sense. Again, this was a very off-the-cuff kind of discussion as to what I kind of think they could do for the incumbent year. Again, I would like to see them do a split thing, support both formats and support it well. Do I have faith they'll do that? No. It'll be one or the other. But we'll see. We'll see. There could be more Worlds. We'll talk about that potentially tomorrow. Let me know down below what you want to see from the Duel Links New World update, what you think is going to happen, your predictions. Thanks for watching. Adios.